I fell hard, and the sound of my own body hitting the bathroom floor cracked through the house before the pain even reached me. My ankle twisted underneath me, and when I tried to move, a jolt shot up my leg so sharp it stole my breath. I called for my daughter because there was no one else who could hear me. "Talia, please, help me." She walked into the doorway, looked down at me and said, "Mom, I am not your maid," before turning away and leaving me on that tile. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe so I can share more stories with you. For a few seconds after she disappeared, I truly believed she would come back. Maybe she would stop in the hallway and realize what she had done. Maybe guilt would soften her steps. Maybe she would return and say she overreacted, that she did not mean to bark at me like I was an annoyance she had to step around. But the only sound I heard was the front door closing as she left the house, taking every ounce of hope with her. I lay there stunned, not from the fall, but from the fact that the child I carried for 9 long months, the daughter I nursed and protected and poured myself into, could watch me on the ground and choose inconvenience over compassion. My palms slid uselessly against the tile as I tried to drag myself toward the counter, toward anything I could use for support, but the pain surged so violently through my ankle that my vision blurred. The bathroom felt smaller by the second, as if the walls were tightening around me, and I could hear my own heartbeat echoing against the stone. At one point, I tried to shift onto my elbows, but the moment my leg moved, a scream ripped out of me before I could stop it. I felt foolish for calling out again, "Talia?" because even I could hear the disbelief in my voice. I knew she was gone. I knew she had chosen to leave. But a mother's mind clings to denial long after truth has already taken root. The minutes stretched long and strange. I thought about Harold sitting in the living room, probably trying to lift his trembling hand to adjust the blanket on his lap, unaware that the woman who always came when he needed help was now fighting for breath in the next room. His Parkinson's had progressed so much these last few years. Some mornings he could barely stand. And now here I was, unable to reach him, unable to check if he had eaten, unable to listen for the soft groan he made when his joints stiffened. I felt trapped in my own home, helpless in a way I had never allowed myself to be. I had been the strong one for so long that I forgot what vulnerability felt like. But there on that floor, every memory of overworking myself, every long night spent awake tending to someone else's needs, every time I swallowed my exhaustion just to keep the house running, all of it came back to me, like a ledger of sacrifices I never expected to be repaid, but never thought would be ignored. I do not know how much time passed before my voice began to give out. I cried for help until my throat burned, until even the attempt felt useless. The hard tile pressed into my hip, and my hands grew numb from the strain of trying to push myself up. More than once I felt tears well up, not because of the physical pain, but because of the realization that my daughter had left me there deliberately. She saw me, she heard me, and she still walked away. When I finally heard someone else's footsteps approaching the house, I thought it was my imagination. But then the front door opened, and a familiar voice floated through the hallway. "Marjorie? You home?" Relief washed over me like warm water, and for the first time since I hit the floor, my breath loosened. "I'm in here," I managed to call out, though my voice sounded distant even to me. Denise's face appeared in the doorway, and her eyes widened before she rushed to kneel beside me. "Good Lord, Marjorie, how long have you been down here?" she asked, touching my shoulder gently. "I don't know," I whispered. "Too long." She looked around, confusion furrowing her brow. "Where's Talia?" I could not answer, not because I did not know where my daughter had gone, but because I was not ready to say the truth out loud. Saying it would make it real. Saying it would force me to accept that the little girl I raised with tenderness and discipline and hope had turned into a woman who could walk away from her injured mother without a second thought. Denise did not press me. She pulled out her phone and called an ambulance with the calm efficiency of someone who had raised 3 children of her own and seen enough emergencies to handle fear with grace. She stayed by my side, holding my hand, murmuring soft assurances until the paramedics arrived. The ride to the hospital was a blur of bright lights and clipped voices. The antiseptic smell hit me immediately. sharp and sterile, and the white sheets on the bed made my bruises look darker. They asked me questions I could barely answer. Did I hit my head? How did I fall? Could I feel my toes? Did I have someone to call? That last question lingered in the air like smoke. My daughter should have been the first person to rush to my side. She should have been sitting in that waiting room, demanding updates, looking for explanations, telling me she was sorry she had not understood the severity of my fall. But she never called. Not once. Denise stayed with me, her presence steady and comforting. I watched her knit her brows together as she listened to the doctor explain the swelling in my ankle, the potential ligament damage, the need for rest and elevation. She asked questions I didn't have the strength to form. She signed forms when my hands were too shaky to hold the pen. And through all of it, the silence from my daughter grew louder. I slept restlessly that night, waking to the sound of machines beeping, the faint shuffle of nurses down the hallway, the ache that throbbed through my leg with every shift in the bed. At one point, lying there in the dim hospital room, I finally allowed myself to face the truth. Talia's cruelty was not sudden. It was not a single event. It was a pattern, a long, bitter line of moments where she chose herself at the expense of everyone else. I had seen flashes of it when she was a teenager, cutting remarks made toward her father, dismissive attitude toward chores, rolling her eyes whenever responsibility brushed too close to her. I prayed it was a phase, something she would grow out of, but she grew into it. The next morning, Denise returned to drive me home. She steadied me as I hobbled inside on crutches, my ankle wrapped tightly, my patience thin. Harold sat in his armchair with a blanket bunched at his feet, his face etched with confusion and worry. I kissed his forehead, whispering, "I'm home." And though he could not speak easily, his trembling hand reached for mine, and that simple gesture nearly broke me. I had been his support for years, but in that moment, I needed him just as much. My phone rang that afternoon. When I saw Talia's name on the screen, a strange emotion rose in me, not hope, not love, but a weary sense of obligation. I answered because I still believed daughters should care. "Mom," she said, her tone sharp, "I need money, today, just send it." No greeting, no hesitation, no mention of the fall she had witnessed, no question about the father she had left alone, just entitlement, pure and unfiltered. I swallowed hard. Something inside me shifted. The fall had bruised more than my ankle. It had cracked open a truth I had avoided for decades. I stood in the living room, leaning heavily on my crutch as I listened to my daughter demand money with the same tone she had used since she was old enough to stomp out of a room without facing consequences. "No," I said quietly. There was a beat of silence. Shock, maybe. Disbelief. "What?" she snapped. "No," I repeated. "I am not sending you money." The fury that followed was immediate. She hurled insults at me the way some people throw stones, hard, quick, without care for the damage they cause. "You're nothing. Always been useless. You ain't even a real mother." The words should have shattered me. Once, they would have. But now, standing on one good leg with my hands gripping the crutches that kept me upright, I felt something else entirely. A boundary. A long overdue boundary rising like a wall between us. She escalated, shouting louder, as if volume could force me to bend the way I always had. "I said no," I repeated, steadier this time. She slammed the door in my face when she stormed out, the sound reverberating through the hallway. But instead of flinching, instead of feeling that familiar guilt claw at my chest, I simply breathed out. Slow, controlled, certain. I had finally stopped mistaking sacrifice for love. And I had finally stopped pretending that my daughter's cruelty was something I had to endure. What happened that day in the bathroom did more than injure my ankle. It cracked open a part of me that had been waiting years to wake up. And now that I was awake, there was no turning back. I woke the next morning before the sun had fully risen, the sky still holding on to that bluish gray that made the whole world feel suspended, like it had not decided yet whether to wake up or fall back asleep. My ankle throbbed from being pinned awkwardly against the cushion through the night, and when I shifted my weight, the pain pulsed upward, reminding me that healing was going to be slow, deliberate, and unforgiving. Still, that ache was nothing compared to the heaviness sitting in my chest, a heaviness I had ignored for years but could no longer pretend was part of the air I breathed. The house felt quieter than usual. Not peaceful, just quiet, like it was waiting to see what kind of day I would choose. The slow hum of the refrigerator reached me from the kitchen, and I heard Harold cough softly in the living room, a low, gravelly sound he had been making every morning lately, the kind that always made me pause and listen for what followed. I pushed myself upright, adjusting the crutch beside the bed before standing, careful not to put weight on the injured ankle. Every small movement felt monumental now, every shift requiring awareness I never had to give before. For decades, I had moved through this house like muscle memory, upstairs to change sheets, downstairs to start breakfast, into the hall closet for extra linens, into the laundry room to fold shirts that trembled slightly when Harold tried to button them himself. Now even crossing the room required concentration. It was humbling. It was frustrating. But in a strange way, it was clarifying. I had spent so much of my life moving nonstop that slowing down felt like stepping into a different version of myself, one who could finally notice the cracks in the foundation that had been forming for years. When I reached the living room, I found Harold awake, half slumped in his chair with his blanket slipping off his lap. His head tilted forward, and his hands shook lightly, the tremors almost rhythmic. The morning light from the window touched the side of his face, highlighting the lines time had etched into his skin. I eased the blanket back into place and touched his shoulder gently. He lifted his face toward me, his eyes soft and searching. And for a moment, neither of us spoke. He had always been a quiet man, but Parkinson's had stolen even that small slice of expression from him, the ability to speak fluidly, to answer quickly, to explain what he needed. Now his needs came through long pauses, slow blinks, small gestures that only someone who had lived intimately with him for years could interpret. I knew the angle of his brow meant confusion. I knew the flicker of his eyes toward the kitchen meant he was hungry, and I knew the slight droop of his shoulder meant he felt guilty that he could not help me while I was hurt. I rested my hand on his. "I'm all right," I said softly. "We'll take it slow today." Slow was inevitable. There was no rushing anything now. I moved into the kitchen, leaning heavily on the counter as I reached for the kettle. Even filling it with water felt like an exercise in patience. The ache in my ankle made balance precarious. The crutch clattered lightly against the cabinet when I set it beside me, and the noise felt louder than it actually was, like the house was reminding me that everything had shifted. As the kettle warmed, I let myself breathe. Just breathe. Because the truth was beginning to settle into me in a way I could not ignore anymore. My daughter's words, her tone, her dismissal, none of it was new. The cruelty had simply grown louder, bold enough now to be undeniable. She had walked away from me while I lay on the bathroom floor. She had left me injured, left her father vulnerable, left our home without a backward glance, and then had the gall to call demanding money, as if I existed only to serve her desires. But what struck me most was not her anger. It was my lack of shock. The fall had startled me. Her reaction had not. Somewhere deep inside me, I had known long before this that the love between us had become something twisted, something unbalanced. I had spent years treating her entitlement like a phase, a rough patch, an attitude problem she would outgrow. But grown women do not abandon their injured mothers. Grown women do not speak venom and expect obedience. Grown women do not turn their backs on the people who raised them unless something inside them believes they are owed everything and required to give nothing. The kettle whistled, a shrill, sharp sound that brought me back to the kitchen. I poured the water into Harold's mug and dipped the tea bag slowly, watching the color bleed into the liquid. When I turned, he was watching me with an expression I recognized instantly: worry. He always saw more than I wanted him to. Even when his illness had slowed his speech and stiffened his muscles, his awareness of me never faded. He knew when I was tired. He knew when I was hiding hurt. He knew when something had shifted inside me, even before I admitted it to myself. I brought him the tea and set it carefully on the table beside him. His fingers trembled as he reached for the handle, and I steadied his hand without thinking. It was instinct by now, smooth, practiced, almost graceful. Caring for him had become the rhythm my life followed. And until recently, I had not realized how much I had let everything else revolve around that rhythm, including the way I allowed myself to be treated by our daughter. I sat beside him, adjusting the crutch under my arm, and exhaled slowly. "We've been doing too much alone," I murmured, mostly to myself. "Too much with too little help." He blinked at me, long and slow, the way he did when he agreed but lacked the words. "I hired someone," I continued, surprising myself by saying it out loud. "Just part-time. A home health aide from the county. She'll come by a few days a week, so I'm not doing all of this alone anymore." His chin lifted, as if he were trying to study my face more closely. I had not talked to him about it beforehand, not because I wanted to hide it from him, but because the decision had come from a new place inside me, one that did not ask for permission to take care of myself. It was a strange feeling, standing on that new internal ground, uncertain but sturdy, a shift I could feel even in my bones. "I need help," I said simply, and I'm finally allowing myself to accept it. His hand tightened around mine, tremors and all, and in that squeeze was something like understanding, maybe even relief. Later that morning, after Harold finished his tea and I settled him with his morning medication, I eased myself onto the couch and rested my leg on a pillow. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different, not expectant, not waiting for me to move or fix or tend or anticipate. It felt like space. It felt like room to think, room to breathe, room to feel what I had swallowed for years. My phone buzzed on the table. I felt a pinch of dread even before I picked it up. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering, bracing myself. "Hello?" A familiar voice came through, a voice I had not expected, but one I welcomed more than I realized. "Marjorie? It's Laverne from next door. Denise told me what happened. Are you doing all right? I've been worried." Laverne had lived in Savannah her whole life, just like me. We had known each other for years, always exchanging warm greetings, always offering help when hurricanes came or when the summers grew too hot and heavy to bear. Her voice carried that soft urgency of someone who cared deeply, but tried not to sound intrusive. "I'm healing," I said. "Still tender, but upright." "Good," she replied, though the relief in her voice was tinged with something heavier. "Listen, I don't mean to pry, but I heard a bit about how it happened." I inhaled slowly. "What exactly did you hear?" "That your daughter was home when you fell, and that she left you." She hesitated, as if tasting the wrongness of the words. "Is that true?" I closed my eyes because the truth stung sharper when spoken aloud. Saying it to myself was one thing. Hearing someone else say it was another. "It's true," I admitted quietly. She walked away. A long pause followed, full of the weight of things neither of us wanted to say aloud. "Marjorie," she whispered, "that is not normal. That is not right." "I know," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. "I know now." Laverne exhaled like she had been holding her breath since the call began. "If you need anything at all, you call me, you hear? You have people around you. You're not alone." Her words wrapped around me in a way that felt unfamiliar, almost foreign. Support did not come easily to me. Giving came easily. Serving came naturally. But receiving, allowing others to hold a piece of my burden, that was a skill I had never practiced. "I appreciate that," I told her, meaning it more than she knew. After we hung up, I stayed still for a long time, letting my thoughts settle like dust in sunlight. The truth was beginning to harden into something unmistakable. My daughter was no longer simply difficult. She was harmful. She was destructive. She was capable of cruelty I could no longer excuse. And I, limping, exhausted, bruised, I had finally stopped accepting it. That shift inside me did not roar. It did not arrive with fireworks or some dramatic surge of courage. It settled quietly, like a key turning in a lock that had rusted from disuse. A small movement, barely noticeable, but capable of opening the door to a different kind of life. When the home health aide, a young woman named Amari, arrived that afternoon, she moved through the house with gentle confidence, speaking softly to Harold and checking my ankle with careful hands. She showed me exercises to keep the swelling down and helped Harold stand long enough for a proper wash-up. Watching someone else care for him felt strange at first, like I had placed something precious in a stranger's hands. But the world did not collapse. Harold did not fall. I did not break apart. Instead, for the first time in years, I felt my shoulders release some of their constant tension. That evening, when Amari left and the house grew quiet again, I found myself thinking not about the fall and not about the months ahead of healing, but about the years behind me, the patterns that had shaped my daughter into who she was. I thought about the times I should have said no, but said yes, because love made me blind to consequences. I thought about how I had shielded her from life's hardships, believing I was giving her comfort, only to realize I had robbed her of resilience. And I thought about how, until now, I had viewed boundaries as punishments instead of protections. By the time night settled over Savannah and the cicadas started their rhythmic hum outside the windows, I understood something with profound clarity. My daughter's growth would not come from my suffering anymore, and mine would not come from pleasing her. The shift had begun, slow, steady, irreversible, and I was finally ready to follow it wherever it led. I woke up the next morning to the sound of rain tapping faintly against the windows, the kind of soft Savannah drizzle that never quite committed to becoming a storm. The sky outside looked washed out and pale, but the air inside the house felt heavier, as if something unseen had shifted its weight from one corner to another overnight. My ankle throbbed the moment I tried to adjust my pillow, and I breathed through the ache until it settled into something dull and persistent. Pain was becoming a companion now, unwanted but familiar. When I pushed myself upright and reached for my crutch, the room tilted slightly. Balance was still unreliable. I had to move slowly, deliberately, the way a person walks across ice they are afraid might crack beneath them. But what struck me most was how natural this caution was becoming. Most of my adult life had been spent rushing, to tend to Harold, to manage a household, to fix problems before they had time to grow teeth. Now the world forced me to slow down, and in that slowness, I could hear myself more clearly than I had in years. In the living room, Harold sat in his chair, head tilted downward as if he had dozed off mid-thought. The blanket had slipped from his knees again, his hands resting lightly on the armrests, with the familiar tremor running through them like a quiet current. I eased the blanket back over his legs and touched his shoulder gently. His eyes fluttered open, searching for something they could not name until they found me. "I'm here," I told him softly. He blinked twice, our unspoken signal for good morning. I made tea again, leaning on the counter as the kettle warmed. The house was quiet, save for the low hum of appliances and the faint patter of rain outside. It was a peaceful quiet, not the tense silence that had filled these walls for years whenever Talia was home. She had always brought noise, not just in her voice, but in her presence, her demands, her sharp sighs, her relentless need to dominate every room she walked into. Even as a child, she had taken up space like a storm cloud, unpredictable and self-centered. I stirred honey into the tea and carried the mug carefully to Harold. He took it with both hands, trembling slightly, and sipped as if he were grateful for the warmth more than the taste. I sat beside him, letting the quiet settle between us. It did not last long. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach tighten. Not because I feared confrontation, but because I was tired of fighting with someone who should have loved me, Talia. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. She would leave a voicemail if it mattered, but then Harold turned his head slightly toward the sound, his brows knitting with confusion, and something inside me softened. He still found comfort in the connections of our family, even when that connection wounded me. So I answered, not for her, but for him. "Hello." Her voice burst through the line like a slap. "Why didn't you answer sooner? I know you saw the call." The entitlement in her tone was so automatic, it almost sounded rehearsed. "I was busy," I said evenly. "With what?" she demanded. "You sit at home all day. You couldn't pick up the phone?" I took a slow breath. It was early, too early for another battle. But boundaries only held when they were used, not feared. "I don't explain myself to you, Talia," I replied. Silence, sharp and stunned. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." A scoff, loud and dripping with disbelief. "You really think you can talk to me like that? After everything I've done for you?" I closed my eyes. The irony was almost dizzying. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked. "Everything," she snapped back. "I'm your daughter. I'm supposed to, and you're supposed to help me too. That's how family works." No, I said quietly. That's how manipulation works. Her breath caught, and for a moment the line went still. You're being dramatic, Mom. I don't have time for this. I need money. I told you that already. You told me, I agreed, but I don't owe you. She sputtered, trying to form a retort that refused to take shape. Finally, she found her voice. You're choosing Dad over me again, aren't you? I looked at Harold then, gentle, patient Harold, sipping his tea while his hands shook slightly. He did not deserve to be used as ammunition in her bitterness. This has nothing to do with your father, I said. This has to do with respect. Oh my God, she groaned. You're still on that? You fell. People fall all the time. Why are you making it such a big deal? You left me on the floor, I reminded her, and you left your father helpless. A big deal doesn't begin to cover it. You're unbelievable, she snapped. I swear you make everything about you. It was about me, I said gently. I was the one injured. The line went dead silent. Then she exploded. You know what? I'm done talking. When you decide to stop acting like a victim, call me. But until then, I guess you don't want a relationship with me. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a long moment, letting her words settle into the space around me. Harold watched me carefully, his brow creasing with worry. I'm all right, I told him, though the ache in my chest suggested otherwise. Because even when the truth sets you free, it still leaves bruises in the shape of old patterns. By early afternoon, the rain had stopped, and a quiet brightness filled the house. Amari arrived right on time, stepping inside with soft confidence and a warm smile. She checked my ankle, adjusted the compression wrap, and helped Harold through his morning exercises. Her presence was gentle but grounded, and for the first time in years, I felt like the weight of caregiving no longer rested solely on my shoulders. While Amari worked, I sat on the couch with a notebook, a plain spiral one I had ignored for months. I once used it to record Harold's medication schedule, but now it felt like something else. A place to examine the pieces of my life I had set aside, a place to confront truths I had avoided. I began to write, not about the fall, not about Talia. Not at first. I wrote about myself, who I used to be, who I became, who I might become next. The words came slowly, shaky like my handwriting on uneven ground, but they came, and with each sentence, I felt a little more of myself return, like a tight knot loosening thread by thread. When Amari finished bathing Harold and settled him comfortably, she approached me quietly. Your daughter called earlier, she said. She left a voicemail. I stiffened. Amari continued gently. I didn't listen to the content, of course, but I saw your face when the earlier call came in. If you need me to stay longer today, I can. Her kindness reached me like a warm breeze in a cold room. Thank you, I said, but I'll be all right. She nodded, hesitating only a moment before leaving for the day. The moment the door closed, the house grew still again. I played the voicemail. There was no greeting, no apology, no acknowledgement of what she had said earlier. Just this. Look, I need the money by tonight. Figure something out. I deleted the message without a second thought. Later that evening, as the sky softened into a dusky lavender, I stepped onto the front porch with my crutch and lowered myself into the rocking chair Harold built for me more than 20 years ago. The wood creaked under my weight, old but sturdy, like the part of me that refused to break no matter how many times life tried to splinter it. The air smelled like wet earth and magnolia blossoms. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to relax. Across the yard, Denise noticed me outside and called over. You holding up, Marjorie? I'm trying, I answered. She nodded knowingly. You know, she said, leaning on her porch rail, people show us who they are long before we're ready to believe them. The truth of her words slid into me like an answer I'd been chasing for years. I think I'm finally ready to believe it, I said. Good, she replied. Believing it is the first step in changing the story. Her words lingered long after she went back inside. That night, while Harold slept and the house settled into its quiet rhythm, I sat alone in the living room and let the reality of everything wash over me. The brokenness of my relationship with Talia, the years of disrespect I had excused, the sacrifices I had normalized, the trauma I had absorbed quietly, the guilt I had mistaken for love, the boundaries I had never learned to build. And then I saw it clearly. The shift inside me, the awakening that had begun the moment she left me on that cold tile. I was not the same woman who lay helpless on the bathroom floor. I was different now, steadier, stronger, quieter in my strength, but unmistakably firm. A woman who finally understood that motherhood did not require martyrdom, that love did not require humiliation, that peace did not require pleasing everyone at the expense of herself. I touched my ankle gently, feeling the pulse beneath the swelling, a reminder that healing took time, but it was possible. And then I knew something with absolute certainty. This was not the end of my story with Talia. It was the beginning of the part where I finally stood up for myself. Even if standing meant leaning on a crutch for a while, even if it meant losing her, or finding her, or discovering that the outcome was no longer mine to control. Because for the first time in my life, I was choosing me. And that choice was changing everything. I woke up before dawn again, though I could not tell whether it was the throbbing in my ankle or the heaviness in my mind that pulled me out of sleep. The sky outside was still ink dark, but I could feel the day waiting behind it, that quiet southern stillness that settles over Savannah just before morning breaks. I lay there for a long moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to Harold breathe beside me. His breaths were soft and shallow, uneven the way they had grown over the last year, as if the very act of drawing air into his lungs required careful negotiation. I eased myself upright, careful not to jostle the bed, and reached for the crutch leaning against the nightstand. The mattress dipped slightly beneath my weight, and Harold stirred, his hand brushing my arm, seeking reassurance even in sleep. I covered his fingers with mine and whispered, "I'm all right." Though I was not entirely sure what all right meant anymore. Standing took effort, moving took more. Each shift of my weight reminded me that my body was still healing, still learning how to trust itself after that fall. I took a slow step toward the door, pausing to make sure my balance held, then another just like it. I had spent decades rushing from room to room, hurrying through mornings because someone always needed something. Now the entire house felt like an obstacle course I had to navigate carefully, deliberately, with a patience I had never granted myself before. When I reached the kitchen, the early light had begun to creep across the floorboards, a faint gray glow stretching from the window above the sink. I set water to boil for tea, steadying myself against the counter every time a tremor of pain shot through my ankle. While the kettle warmed, I looked around the kitchen, at the stack of dishes waiting to be washed, at the basket of laundry still unfolded, at the broom leaning in the corner, and I realized how quickly the house shifted when I was not at full strength. For years, I had been the keeper of this home, the quiet engine that made everything run. I had taken pride in it once. But somewhere along the way, pride had turned into pressure. Pressure had turned into obligation, and obligation had turned into a kind of invisible servitude I had not recognized until the moment my daughter said the words that echoed still, "I am not your maid." The irony was bitter. I had never asked her to be my maid. I had never asked her for anything, really. I had given her everything she needed and more than she deserved, but asking her for help, asking her to show basic human decency, had been too much for her to bear. Before the kettle whistled, I heard the soft tap of Harold's cane in the hallway. He appeared in the doorway, slightly hunched, his expression drawn but determined. I moved toward him instinctively, only to pause. My ankle reminded me with a sharp pulse that rushing was no longer an option. "I was coming to get you," I said. He shook his head slowly, then pointed to the table. He wanted to sit with me, wanted to start the morning together the way we always had. I helped him ease into his chair, adjusted the cushion beneath him, and set a folded cloth beneath his right elbow to steady the tremor. These little adjustments had become second nature to me, a choreography I could perform even half asleep. When the tea was ready, I poured his cup first. He wrapped both hands around it, letting the warmth seep into his fingers, and looked at me with quiet concern. He did not have to speak for me to understand the question behind his eyes. "How are you really?" I sat beside him, letting my body rest into the chair. "I'm managing," I said, "and trying to take things one moment at a time." He nodded. It was the gentle nod of a man who had learned that acceptance was sometimes the only weapon left against the challenges life placed before you. We sipped our tea in silence, listening to the morning find its shape around us. But as peaceful as the moment seemed, I felt a tension building in my chest, a tightness wrapped around a truth I could no longer ignore. My relationship with my daughter had reached a breaking point, and I was no longer willing to pretend it could be patched with apologies I no longer intended to offer. When the clock on the wall chimed 6, I felt a shift in the air, as if the day had finally awakened. A few minutes later, I hobbled to the porch to check the mail, though I doubted anything important would be waiting for me. The morning air was cool, crisp in a way Savannah rarely offered, except for a handful of weeks in late winter. Moisture clung to the railings, and the grass glistened faintly under the dim light. As I reached the end of the walkway, I heard a car slow near the curb. The engine idled for a second too long, and instinctively I looked up. Of course, Talia. She sat behind the wheel, sunglasses on despite the dim sky, her expression flat, unreadable. The window rolled down halfway, and even before she spoke, I felt the familiar tightening in my stomach. The tightening I always felt before one of her storms. "What are you doing outside?" she snapped. "You're supposed to be resting. I swear, you make everything harder than it has to be." The audacity of her tone nearly knocked the breath out of me. I steadied myself on my crutch. "Good morning to you too." She rolled her eyes. "I don't have time for this. I'm here because you didn't answer my messages." "I deleted them," I said simply. Her jaw dropped slightly. "What?" "I didn't feel the need to listen," I said. "Not after yesterday." She got out of the car abruptly, letting the door slam shut behind her. The sound startled a bird from the telephone wire, a jarring reminder of just how forceful she was even without trying. "Mom, you're being dramatic," she said, approaching me with that quick, impatient stride. "You fell. People fall. But you're taking this way too personally." "It was personal," I replied. "You walked away." "I was late. I had things to do. You always act like your emergencies are the only ones that matter." I felt something inside me harden, like a line drawn firmly across sand that had once been soft. "What I needed was help," I said, "and you chose everything else over me." She inhaled sharply, irritation written across every inch of her face. "Look, I didn't come here to argue. I came because I need that money today. If you transfer it now, I can still make the payment." I stared at her, taking in the slick ponytail, the designer bag, the polished nails, every sign that her life was built on the scaffolding of other people's labor. "No," I said. She blinked rapidly. "No? What do you mean no?" "I mean no," I repeated. "I am not giving you money." She stepped closer, her voice dropping into that condescending register she used whenever she felt cornered. "Mom, don't play games. I'll pay you back." "You never do," I said. "Yes, I do." "No," I said calmly. "You promise you will, and then you disappear until the next crisis." Her mouth opened and closed like she could not decide whether to yell or bargain. "I'm your daughter. You're supposed to help me." "Not at the expense of my dignity," I said. "Not anymore." She scoffed, a sound full of disbelief and contempt. "Oh, so now you're acting like some strong, independent woman? Please, you can't even walk without a crutch." The cruelty in her voice sliced straight through me, but instead of wounding me deeply, it landed against something resilient, something newly formed inside me. "Maybe I can't walk without help right now," I said, "but that doesn't mean I will let you walk all over me." She flinched, startled by the sharpness in my tone, sharpness she had not heard from me in years. "Mom, you're being ridiculous," she said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "You're just upset because you're hurt. Once you calm down, you'll realize I'm right." "I'm calm now," I said, "and my answer is still no." Her eyes narrowed. "Fine, then remember this moment the next time you need something." "I've needed a lot of things," I replied softly. "You rarely showed up." She froze, and in that stillness I saw something flicker across her face, something like guilt or fear or perhaps the early stages of recognition. But just as quickly as it appeared, she smothered it beneath indignation. "You're unbelievable," she spat. "I don't even know why I try." "You don't," I said. "That's the problem." She stared at me for a long, tense moment, and I saw the truth war with her pride. But pride had always won with her. Always. Without another word, she turned and stormed back to her car, slamming the door so hard the entire frame shuddered. She sped off in a burst of gravel, leaving nothing behind but the smell of exhaust and the echo of bitterness. I stood there for a long moment, gripping my crutch, listening to the quiet return. My ankle throbbed, my heart beat hard. But I did not regret a single word, because for the first time in decades, I had protected myself. I limped back inside, closed the door behind me, and leaned against it, letting the stillness settle once more. Harold looked up from his chair when I approached, concern etched in every line of his face. "I'm all right," I told him, and this time I meant it. I lowered myself beside him, rested my head briefly against his shoulder, and breathed in the familiar scent of home, the scent of a life built on love, not entitlement. "Something's changing," I whispered, more to myself than to him, "and I think it's about time." He squeezed my hand, tremors and all, and in that simple gesture, I felt affirmation, strength, and something close to peace. The morning after Talia sped away from my house, gravel still scattered across the street from the force of her anger, the sky over Savannah was clear and sharp, the kind of blue that almost hurt to look at. I woke up feeling strangely light, even with the throbbing in my ankle and the familiar dull ache in my back. Something inside me had settled. I had finally done what I had been afraid to do for years. I had told my daughter no and meant it. No wobbling, no chasing her after the argument, no calling her back to make sure she was not too upset with me. I had stood in my doorway on one good leg and chosen myself. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe so I can share more stories with you. For the next week, the days moved in a quiet, almost strange rhythm. Amari came by on her scheduled days, helping Harold bathe, stretch, and move around the house with more ease. I watched as she treated him with gentleness and respect, never rushing him, never speaking to him like a burden. It struck me how natural that seemed to her, and how unnatural it had always seemed to my own daughter. In between those visits, I took small walks with my crutch along the front porch, and then, little by little, down the walkway. At first, I could only manage a few steps before the pain forced me back inside. But each day, I made it a bit farther. The neighbors started noticing. Laverne would wave from her yard. Denise would call out, "Look at you, slowly taking your kingdom back." Their small encouragements soaked into me like medicine. Harold noticed too. On the days he was more alert, he would watch me through the window as I moved slowly up and down the walkway, his eyes following each step like I was doing something heroic instead of just walking in front of my own house. And maybe in a way I was, because for years I had existed inside the house, inside the role, inside the expectations. Now, I was existing as myself again, out in the open air, even if that air was just a thin strip between my front door and the street. The phone was quieter as well. Fewer calls, fewer interruptions. The silence was almost startling at first. No constant buzzing with demands, no messages beginning with "I need," or "you have to," or "send me." I had not realized how much mental space her constant contact took up until it stopped. There was a kind of peace in that quiet, a peace that felt both unfamiliar and deeply right. But peace in life is never uninterrupted for long. 2 weeks after the confrontation in my yard, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, flipping slowly through a church pamphlet someone had left in the mailbox, when my phone lit up on the table. The name flashed on the screen like a test. Talia. I watched it ring, once, twice, 3 times. My heart beat faster, not with fear this time, but with a strange, steady readiness. On the 4th ring, I answered, "Hello." Her breath came through the line uneven, like she had been crying or walking fast. There was no sharp edge in her voice at first, no immediate demand. "Mom," she said, and for the first time in a long time, she sounded small. "Yes," I replied. A pause. I could almost hear her trying to decide how to start. "I need help," she finally said. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the window, at the sunlight stretching across the sink. "What kind of help?" I asked. "My rent is behind," she said in a rush. "The power company keeps calling. My car note's overdue. Everything's just falling apart. I thought I'd catch up. I really did, but it's all piled up on me." Her words tumbled out of her like heavy things she had been holding too long. "How long have you been behind?" I asked. "Months," she whispered, "but I always found a way. I'd borrow from you, from friends, shift bills around. I thought I could fix it, but now I can't keep up. They said they're going to cut off my power next week, Mom." I heard the trembling in her voice and felt that old pull, that maternal instinct that wanted to rush in, to rescue, to fix, to absorb her mistakes into my body like I had done when she was a child with a scraped knee and a bad attitude. But this was not a knee. These were choices, and choices had consequences. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked, not unkindly. "You know what I need," she said. "I just need you to loan me some money so I can get caught up. Just this once. I swear I'll handle things better after this. I just need a reset." Her words were familiar. I had heard different versions of that same promise for years. Each time I had opened my wallet. Each time I had rearranged my life to soften the blow of hers. Each time, nothing changed. This time, I listened to what she was really asking, for me to shield her from what life was trying to teach her. "No," I said quietly. "I will not give you money." She inhaled sharply. "Mom, I'm serious. This isn't a joke. I could lose my place. I won't have anywhere to live." My grip tightened around the phone. "I hear that," I said, "and I am sorry you are in that situation, but my answer is still no." Her voice rose. "So you'd rather see your own daughter homeless than help her?" "That's not what I said," I answered. "I said I won't give you money. That is not the same as saying I don't care." "Feels the same," she muttered bitterly. "Talia," I said, my tone firm but steady, "have you talked to your landlord about a payment plan? Have you called the power company to ask for an extension? Have you looked into assistance programs? Have you taken a second job, downsized, cut expenses, sold anything unnecessary?" She was silent. "Or have you only called me?" I asked. Her breathing quickened. "I've been busy. It's hard, Mom. You don't understand how expensive everything is." "Oh, I understand," I replied. "I have been managing a household on limited income for years. I have been caring for a sick husband. I have fallen on a bathroom floor and been overlooked by the very child I spent my life raising. Do not tell me I do not understand hard." She swallowed audibly. "You're turning this around on me." "No," I said. "I am turning it back where it belongs." I could feel her anger building on the other side of the line, like humidity rising before a storm. "You're punishing me," she said. "I am not punishing you," I said. "I am stepping out of the way so life can teach you what I have protected you from for too long." She scoffed, but there was no real strength behind it. "You talk like you're some wise teacher now." "No," I said softly. "I talk like a woman who survived being your maid in all but name. The day I lay on that floor and you walked away, I saw the truth. You did not become this person by accident. I helped create this by never letting you feel the weight of your own actions." She went quiet. "You said I'm nothing," I continued, my voice softer but unshakable. "You said I'm not a real mother. You said I live to serve you. And for a long time, I acted like you were right. But I don't live to serve you, Talia. I live to serve my own peace now." The silence between us lengthened. For a moment, I wondered if she had hung up. Then slowly, she spoke again. "So what? You're just done with me?" "No," I answered. "I am not done with you. But I am done with this version of our relationship, the one where I give and you take and nothing changes." Tears crept into her voice, making the words shake. "Then what am I supposed to do?" I let out a long breath. "You are supposed to do what grown women do when they realize they're in trouble. You're supposed to face your situation head on. Call the companies. Be honest. Ask for arrangements. Look for community programs. Pick up extra shifts. Cut out luxuries. Take responsibility. You are supposed to grow." She did not like that answer. I could hear it in the way she sucked in air through her teeth. "You always want to teach me something," she muttered. "Even now." "Because no one else has," I said. "And I see where that has left you." She shifted, and I heard the faint rustle of fabric like she was pacing or rubbing her arm. "You know," she said, "my friends talk about their mothers all the time. How their moms give them money, help them get apartments, co-sign on loans. They say that's what moms do." "And do their mothers fall on bathroom floors alone while their daughters walk away?" I asked. Her answer was a whisper. "No. You don't get the benefits of a good mother while giving the behavior of a selfish stranger." I said, "Not anymore." She took a long, shuddering breath. For the first time, I heard something like recognition in it, the weight of reality starting to settle onto her shoulders. "So that's it," she said finally. "You're just gonna sit there with your tea and your little boundaries and watch life take me down?" I smiled sadly, even though she could not see it. "No," I said. I'm going to sit here with my tea, my husband, and my boundaries and watch life finally reach you. Because I have stepped in front of it for too long. She cried then. Real tears. Not the loud, angry kind she used when she wanted something, but the quiet kind that leak through when the truth catches you off guard. I let her cry. I did not rush to soothe her. I did not jump in to fix the feeling. She was experiencing the discomfort of growth, and I had no right to interrupt it. When she finally spoke again, her voice was small. I don't know how to do it, Mom. I don't know how to not lean on you. You start by trying, I said. One call at a time, one decision at a time. If you want, I can help you think through your options. I can listen. I can talk you through steps. But I will not be your wallet, and I will not be your maid. There it was, the line I had needed to say for years. She sniffed, wiped her nose. You'd help me call them? Like tell me what to say? Yes, I said. If you really want to take responsibility, I will not abandon you in that. But I will not carry you either. It was quiet then, heavy but not hopeless. Okay, she whispered. We spent the next hour on the phone. I listened as she called her landlord, voice trembling but steady enough to ask for a payment arrangement. I stayed silent while she spoke to the power company, explaining her situation, negotiating a delay. I encouraged her to look up rental assistance programs in her area and to consider selling some things she did not need. None of it was easy. None of it magically fixed everything. But with each step, I could hear something shifting in her, a kind of scared, shaky responsibility forming where entitlement used to live. When we finally hung up, she was exhausted. I was too. But it was a different kind of exhaustion, the kind that comes after work that actually means something. In the days that followed, we spoke more often, but the tone had changed. She still slipped sometimes, still tried to guilt me, still pushed for easy solutions. Old habits die hard, especially ones fed for so long. But each time she tried, I stayed steady. No, I will not pay that bill. No, I will not put it on my credit. No, I will not rescue you from consequences. And each time, after the flare of anger, there was a little more acceptance in her voice. On my side, things changed too. I took longer walks once my ankle allowed it, circling the block, greeting neighbors I had only waved to from the window before. I joined a small Bible study group at the church down the street, not so much for the scripture, though that comforted me, but for the fellowship. Women around my age and older, talking about boundaries, adult children, aging, and the quiet grief of learning to choose yourself after a lifetime of choosing everyone else. I told my story there one day. About the bathroom floor. About the refusal, about the slammed door, and the quiet afterward. Their faces were full of understanding, nodding in that way people do when they recognize their own scars in someone else's words. One woman put her hand over mine and said, "You didn't lose your daughter that day. You lost the lie you were living. That's different." I carried that with me. Harold's condition continued to move along its slow, difficult path, but with Amari's help and my lighter emotional load, I was able to show up for him with more presence, more patience. I was not running on fumes anymore. I cooked smaller meals, took afternoon naps when I needed them, read novels again, and listened to old records we used to dance to. Sometimes I even swayed a little in the living room, one hand on the chair for balance, imagining us younger and stronger, but knowing that the love between us did not live in the past. It was still here, in the way his fingers curled around mine when he was frightened or confused, in the way his eyes softened when I entered the room. Weeks turned into a couple of months. Talia's life did not transform overnight into some neat, stable picture. She stumbled. She panicked. She tried to fall back into old patterns. But the difference now was that I did not fall with her. I became a sounding board, not a safety net stretched under every poor decision. One evening, she called me and her voice sounded different, tired but clearer. "I picked up a second job," she said. "Evenings at a grocery store. I hate it. My feet hurt. Customers are rude." "I understand," I said. "Work is like that sometimes. But I'm paying down the past due stuff," she continued, little by little. "I am proud of you for that," I told her, and I meant it. She was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, she said, "I thought about you the other night." "Why?" I asked. "Because my feet were hurting so bad, and I remembered you working long shifts when I was little, then coming home and cooking and helping me with school. I used to think you were just supposed to do that, like it was automatic, like it didn't cost you anything. She paused. I'm sorry, she said. The words were thin, hesitant, but they were real. For which part? I asked gently. For all of it, she whispered. For saying you're nothing, for leaving you on that floor, for acting like you owed me more than you owed yourself. Something inside me loosened at that, like a knot finally slipping free. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It matters. Do you forgive me? She asked, voice small again. I am working on it, I said honestly. Forgiveness is a process, but I can say this. I am not angry the way I used to be. That has lifted. And I'm choosing to see you as a woman learning, not a child misbehaving. She took a shaky breath. I'm trying, Mom. I know, I said, and that is more than I could say a few months ago. We did not become a storybook mother and daughter after that. There were still moments when her old entitlement poked through, and I had to gently but firmly remind her that I was no longer living in the old script. But there was a tenderness starting to grow between us, fragile but real, built not on dependency and guilt, but on honesty and consequences. The door she had slammed in my face that day, that symbolic door of disrespect and entitlement, stayed closed. But slowly, another door began to open. One built on boundaries, mutual respect, and the understanding that I was not a servant in my own life. I reclaimed my time. I reclaimed my energy. I reclaimed my worth. And in doing so, I gave my daughter a chance to reclaim her own life too. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, the air warm and full of the sounds of Savannah settling down for the night, I feel something I had not felt in a long, long time. Peace. Not the fake peace of keeping others comfortable while I fell apart inside, but the real kind. The kind that comes from telling the truth, from standing up for yourself, from accepting that you cannot control anyone else's choices, but you can control how much of yourself you hand over to them. What would you have done in my place? Tell me where you're listening from. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you feel moved by my story and want to support more of them being told, you can also use super thanks to help this channel grow and keep sharing voices like mine. With heartfelt greetings, until next time.